tonight, and thanks for MyPlace Rowville for hosting it. Really appreciate it. My name's David Armstrong. I've got a couple of platforms that I'm involved in. One's called Living Free Movement, and then one's called Inpower Movement. I joined Inpower Movement about 7 years ago, and it's changed my life as to what that journey is, and Cal's been very much a part of that. So the first introduction, though, is a little guy called Lex Dove, and he's better at explaining this stuff than me. So let's start with him, and we'll get going from there.
On the news and see politicians raving about vaccinations. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why every commercial break has an ad for 5G. It's because this is really just a clever way for governments and corporations to send you an offer that you accept unknowingly. This happens through a concept called tacit agreement, which is when you agree to something without even saying anything. You see, in law, silence is acquiescence. So when you stay silent, you're actually saying yes. You're saying yes to that tower down the street, that meter on the side of your house, those streaks you see up in the sky, and the very possibility that a vaccine could ever be mandatory. The good news is, now that you're aware of this offer to contract, all you have to do is respond. And this is done through conditional acceptance. With a series of lawful notices, you can send a counteroffer to corporate executives and government officials, stating that you will accept their offer on the condition they can prove that it's safe, something we know they cannot and will not do. And when these individuals fail to provide proof, you're able to hold them personally liable and charge them a fee for every day they continue to act. Inpower has already seen success in several countries where officials have stepped down after receiving these documents. This means that if we get together en masse and send thousands of documents at the same time, we can make real change in the world. And we won't need weapons, elections, or protests to do it. All we need are pieces of paper that can be printed from home and sent in the mail. It turns out, changing the world is easy when you're in power.
All right, some of you may have been to a presentation this time last year with Cal.
Like you think differently than most men around you. Like
7 strange behaviours that prove you're a Sigma male. Is this what you've been looking up, Cal? This is not my computer, I'm just saying. Whatever's saved on this, it's got memory. AI is obviously working off what Cal's been looking up. So we're going to go into something a little bit different tonight. So Inpower Movement, there's a notice of liability. That's sort of what we're explaining there, and there's a process and there's a reason behind that. There's a church that backs Inpower Movement. It's called Revelation 18, and there's a reason that it's called Revelation 18. But this goes a little bit deeper than all of that, and this is something I requested that Cal speak about. It's a little bit controversial for some people, because we're going to talk about some things that are in the Bible and how it relates to what's happening right now. So for me, if someone spoke about the Bible, let's say, even 5 or 6 years ago, I've been a part of Inpower for 7 years, so maybe it's a little bit longer. But when I first came to Inpower, I wasn't interested in any of the Bible, any of the spiritual stuff, and that's changed over time. And the stuff that we're going to go into, or Cal's going to go into tonight, the theme is called Breaking Out of Babylon. And the information I've tested over this time, and I can't fault it, and it's actually changed the way I go about my life. And that was the request when I asked Cal to come out from Canada to our festival last week and talk about this topic. I knew it might be a little bit controversial, but I also knew that for those who are ready and open, it might really help you on your journey. So we're going to get started. Be open-minded. If some of these words are triggering, I understand. It triggered me too at one time, but it's also helped me a lot as well. So put your hands together for Cal Washington.
As Dave said, I'm Cal Washington. I'm an ordinary guy that had an extraordinary experience. And through that, I learned a lot. It started with a divorce. For those that don't know my story, I'll just go quickly. And I was confronted headlong with this thing called court. And I'd not really been in it like that before. I had a couple traffic things and a few minor things over the years that most people have. And it's one day and you're in and out. But this was oppressive. I got arrested, pepper sprayed, SWAT team at my house. Like, these are the types of things that I went through because I was questioning what was happening to me in that court. Because it wasn't what I thought court was, even though I'd been there a couple of times. But what was happening in there didn't line up with my idea of justice and the truth and all that stuff. That had nothing to do with what was going on in there. And so it's that journey and that question and that standing up to it, like I just wouldn't back down. And they didn't like it, and I didn't like it. So we were at an impasse, and of course they've got guns and all that. So the amount I learned because of that is quite incredible. It's not because I'm smart. It's just I stood there and I took the flack, and I learned a lot through it. I learned that we don't have a country in Canada, and most of the countries are corporations. I learned that the court is also a corporation. It's not really a court. It's a business that offers court services. And if you treat it like a court, and you're not actually in a court, because you can move the thing so you can get into a court, but by and large, it's a business, and it's there to make money and either administrate money or make money. So through all that, I learned about the money system. I learned, how money works, basically. I'm not an expert on, I'm not a financial expert or anything. But I learned about this old system that is still running today. It runs under law merchant. So, as we get into this. But as I was learning this commercial thing, it seemed to correlate with the Bible stories and the Bible principles. And at first I thought, that's a neat coincidence. But then it became clear that no, one of them is copying the other. I don't know which one, but there's a mirror image here. It's like a negative from the old photograph days. I'm dating myself, but it seemed to be the same principles applying to spiritual ideas was being applied to the money system. And Yeshua said, you can't serve two masters, Mammon or God. And when you think about that for a second, he's equating money and a principality that runs that to God. So there's a choice that's being made there, and it's literally that. And so it's quite a bit to take on here. I'm just gonna kind of blast through this, so you're gonna have to forgive me. And for those that really don't like the Bible, just be, like Dave said, be open-minded. This is not a religious type of thing. This is the Bible, I believe, is number one, a contract, and number two, it's an instruction manual on a lot of things, including the situation we're in right now. And it's not telling it very clearly, but if you connect a few dots, you can kind of, get the Hansel and Gretel bread trail, and you can go, oh, okay, I think I see where this is going. So Babylon itself is written in the Bible as a spiritual thing. Babylon as a place and a system here in the world is ancient. It goes back into antiquity, like before they even were really keeping track of anything. But they found lots of monetary things in clay. So the things that we would have on paper, they had them in clay, and they can find these things. So they had banking ideas. I'm just kind of blasting through this, but they had some very complex banking ideas in ancient times before there was money, before there was cash. Still commodities, still dealing in cows and corn and stuff. And but they had these very complex ideas, which makes you wonder, if these were primitive people, how did they understand things that we're still using today in complex banking? And you got to think about these things. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But anyway, Babylon has been around for a long time. There was this story about the Tower of Babel, and it was a construction, a thing that they were building in order to reach to heaven. What I will tell you about that, they were trying to get out of earth. When you study the Giza pyramids and you understand what's going on in some of these chambers and what happens regarding the pineal gland and other things surrounding that, those were all to get out of here. NASA pretends like they're getting out of here. They're not. They're trying to get out. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to show you basically that what we live in here is basically a prison. It's a holding place. And it's not for us. We're not the prisoners. I want you to know that. But there are beings in here who are imprisoned. And they're not sentenced here. They're held here on remand. So most of us understand that there's a group of beings here that are kind of in control of things. We're hyper aware of it. And there's a couple of things. Name me two things about this group of people that you sort of would think that they are or do. They're satanic. So we throw that word around, yeah, they're Luciferian, they're satanic, but what is that? What is the actual beliefs? Is Satan real? Is Lucifer real? Or is this just a airy-fairy fairy tale that these people kind of believe in and they're kind of deluded? So they are Luciferian. There is a religion and there is a Lucifer. So I don't know if you can read that. Oh yeah, you can. Okay. So this is, I just went and looked up Satanism and I've got two little things here. So Satanism is the rational focus on the self. If you understand some of the teachings of witchcraft and Satanism, it is do as thou wilt. That is their main tenet. When you start to see what's going on here. So remember this. It is focus on the self in relation to life here and now. No future, just what can I get now? I don't care about anybody else but me. This philosophy is based on carnal fulfillment with consideration for the preservation of self. Magic is practiced as a type of ideological empowerment and psychodrama. Firstly, Luciferianism is a modern term for the ideological, philosophical, and magical attainment of applicable knowledge and inner power. This type of knowledge sought is through study, initiation. Why do these people all have black eyes? And other things. Where was I? Inner power. Through study, initiation, and the continual struggle for self-improvement through the spiritual rebellion against the social concept of God and religion. They are anti-God. Religion is a whole other word, but Luciferianism is different from medieval magic and witchcraft, as the Luciferian approaches the art as a psychological, subconscious, and conscious foundation. The theory of ritual magic is that the Luciferian understands the gods, plural, spirits and demons are the archetypal creation of humanity, and that our subconscious feeds the type of energy in which these beings exist through. Really. Luciferians thus seek experience and the darkness within to gain knowledge, wisdom, and power. Luciferianism is thus the ultimate spirituality, as it focuses on the growth and expansion of the individual in a rational sense here and now, with a broad range of spiritual exploration as well. And this is from somebody I don't even know, but Babylonian magic. There's the word Babylon in there. This is a different, same site, but different description of Luciferianism. Sorry, I'm just reading this, but we got to understand what it is we're dealing with. Luciferianism is rooted in numerous magical traditions which express some specific aspect of the adversary. So there's some adversary, doesn't say what it's about. The adversary is perceived as being the light bringer. Lucifer is the light bringer. This is all from the Bible. He can come as an angel of light still today. An empowering spirit which the individual models their intention on. The mind is trained to think as a god or goddess, thus liberating the self from restrictive spirituality. The avenues of initiation within Luciferianism are as varied as the initiates. Lucifer is merely a symbol for a deeper, more enriching, diverse energy surrounding the order, thus allowing transcultural and embrace of darkness, that's the second time that's been said, and the light contained within. Luciferianism encourages a strict adherence towards the self-determined goals of the initiate. In other words, do as thou wilt, get what you want, don't care about anybody else, to the point of very sordid things. The initiate, as well as a discipline of magical practice. The process of initiation is central to the adversarial light, known as Luciferian magic, alchemical changes within the mind and soul of the initiate, thus a state of continual self-improvement and transformation. And this is magic of the Nephilim. That's also a word from the Bible. This is a site called Bible Hub, so I just got a more biblical or Christian, quote unquote, point of view of what Luciferianism is. Luciferianism broadly refers to a system of belief and practice that venerates or admires Lucifer as a symbol of enlightenment, self-empowerment, or rebellion, often portrayed as the figure who brought light to humanity. Remember this light thing as we go through this. While practitioners' views vary widely, common ground typically involves the elevation of Lucifer as an emancipator or even a quasi-deity, in contrast to the biblical teaching that identifies him with Satan and the adversary of God. The term Lucifer itself entered Christian tradition through a Latin rendering of Isaiah 14:12. So we'll go through that. In many modern English translations, including the Berean Standard Bible, the text reads more pointedly of the morning star or the day star. Again, these are light connotations. From a biblical standpoint, the passage addresses the prideful king of Babylon, but when viewed in light of the other scripture, is also understood to be referencing the ultimate fall of the chief adversary, Satan, described as in Ezekiel 28 and Revelation 12. So we'll go to this Isaiah 14:12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend unto heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. So this is the story of how Lucifer wanted to elevate himself above God. Literally wanted to put a claim on the throne. It was like a coup, an overthrow. He got a third of the angels to go along with this coup. And there was a battle. And they were cast, well, we'll just keep going here. And this is what this is talking about. So this is now Revelation, which is at the end of the book, a New Testament book. But it's talking about giving more clarity on that story of what happened at that point. So, and there appeared another wonder in heaven. Behold, a great dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven. There is the reference to the third of the angels. So stars can be an allegory for the angels. Like he said here, I will exalt down in the verse 13, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. So that's above all the angels. So his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered for her to devour her child as soon as it was born. This is a foreshadowing of Yeshua coming here. So we'll cut down to verse 7. And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought against and his angels. Sorry, I'll read that again. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. There was a group of angels, a third of them were fighting 2/3. And that's important to understand. That's still the case today. There are twice as many of these beings that didn't go with this coup as are trapped in here. And so you got to keep that in mind. We have the advantage, but they're not doing anything. And there's reasons for that. So that's why we're having this talk. And they prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. They were cast out. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world. He was cast out into the earth. And his angels were cast out with him into the earth, not on the earth. We think in terms and how they get us to think we're on a rock that's spinning around another rock that's spinning around a whole bunch of other rocks, and we're all insignificant in here. No, he was put in here with his angels. It's a container. And you'll see even more along that line. That's why I want to emphasize that. So there was a war. There was number one, I am the greatest. I will ascend above God. I will do this. I will do that. And that's the Satanism thing. It's all about me. Do as thou wilt. It's all related, but it's here in the Bible. And this is where they get it from. Actually, it's what it is, and the Bible's just describing it in a certain way. Okay. This one I'm going to have trouble reading from here. So this is Job. So in my journey, when, I was driving without insurance and I was just battling with the government on many fronts now after the divorce. I was learning so much and I was like, Mom, you can't make me this, and I'm not going to have a driver's license and all that stuff. I was that guy. Driving around with no plates and, getting arrested and pulled over and all that stuff. So they ended up holding me for 60 days pending a trial. So I was held without bail. I was only sentenced to 1 day, but I had already done 60 by the time I got sentenced. After all that, they ended up owing me $300 million US, which caused such chaos in the government all the way up to the federal level. That's when I knew commerce was real, because these guys are running and these guys know way more than I do about this. So anyway, I had read Job many times. Well, I wouldn't say many times, a few times, the book of Job. So I was reading it again, trying to get the wisdom, because it's wisdom literature, I was told. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be some wisdom in there. And so I'm reading it. And I got, this is Job 1, which is right at the beginning. So there was a man who was perfect and upright, and one that feared God, and he eschewed evil. So he was following God and going, staying away from evil. He had a lot of stuff. He was very wealthy. He had a lot of daughters and sons, and everything was going really well for him. Like he was, on the fast track. Had a lot of goats and pigs and not pigs, should say. He was doing really well. And he actually made sure that he was covering his kids because they were partying a little bit. They were a little bit on the side. So when we get to verse 6, so they're kind of explaining who Job is. Everything's going pretty good, and he's really following God, making sure he's covering all the rules and the regulations or whatever it is, right? And on verse 6, now we switch to a whole other place. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came with them. He was among them. And the Lord said to Satan, "Whence cometh thou?" And Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro in the earth and walking up and down in it." After I'd been remanded, I went, he's remanded. He's stuck. Can't get out except to go to this court case, which is how it was for me. In 60 days, I probably appeared, 8, 10 times. And they would put me in a van and, handcuffs, down to the courthouse, let the handcuffs off, go blah, 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 and then back in the van and back to jail. So I did this for 60 days. So there's a couple things about this. Why is God asking him where he is? I thought God knew everything. So it's a rhetorical question in order to reveal something here. He's remanded. This is a prison. Earth is a holding place. They were cast into it, and he's still here. He's allowed to go to that, and he's the accuser of the brethren who accuses the brethren day and night. So he's up there all the time, but he's basically remanded. So we go to verse 8, and the Lord said to Satan, "Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in earth, perfect and upright man, one that fears God and escheweth evil," like he shuns evil. So if you know something about court, they call your case. So docket number, blah, 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 Calvin, Washington, and you go toddling up there. This is a court. And the reason why Satan has toddled up there is because they called his name. This is his case. It's not Job's case. You got to understand that. So there's a court case going on, and Satan has this case. And the first thing that God says is, what about my guy Job? What does Job have to do with Satan? Why are we talking about Job? Why are we talking about a man? What is this? It's right here. And then Satan answers, because God says, yeah, he's following me. He goes, well, does Job fear God for naught? Thou hast made him a hedge about him and about his house and all that he hath, and on every side. He's blessed. Everything's going really well for him. And then in verse 11, but put forth thine hand now and touch all that he hath, and he will curse you to your face. There's Satan's case. He's got to get a man to go, I hate you, God. You see what's going on here? And so he's moving the cord. He's put in a motion. We take everything he's got, and he will hate you like I hate you. And so God said to Satan, okay, I see your motion. I understand that you have a point there. Yes, I do have a hedge around him. He is blessed. So I have to actually, because I'm just, I have to take your motion into account and actually give it some merit. Your motion has merit. But in verse 11, he's telling God to take his stuff. So God gets a lot of blame in here. God, you did this, or you didn't intervene. Why are you allowing this? You ever heard stuff like that? Ever thought stuff like that? So in verse 12, he says to Satan, behold, all that he hath is in thy power. So he granted the power back to Satan. He says, you have to do this. I'm not doing it. Only upon himself put not forth thine hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of God. So that's the order. He got the order stamped. Go ahead, take all his stuff, and we'll see if he will curse me to my face. What's Job going to do? What is a man going to do? What is a man going to choose to do? Who is a man going to choose to follow? So, oops, wrong way. Actually, I need to go to verse 2, which I don't have on here. So anyway, chapter 2, it starts again with the, where have you been? I've been in the earth walking back and forth in it. What happens is Job loses everything. All his kids die in fires and everything is gone, like boom, 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 instantly. It's like total, one of those things where everything is going wrong. Ever been there? Yeah. It was bad. So, but he didn't curse God to his face. Not sure why I don't have... Oh, here's Job 2. I don't know how it ended up. Anyway, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before... Actually, yeah, I'll go here. So he lost everything. He shaved his head and sat down upon the ground and worshipped. And he said, naked I came out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. And the Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. He did not blame God. He was like, I don't like this. So in all this, Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. So there's another day when the sons of God became blah, 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 all the way to, wherever you've been. I've been in the earth, walking back and forth in it. And so verse 3, it says, and the Lord said to Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil. And he still holdeth fast his integrity, although you moved the court, put a motion in the court, moved me against him to destroy him without cause. Do you see what's going on here? God did not want to do this to Job, but he was compelled to do it because of the way the court system works. He has to give Lucifer his chance to prove he's God. And so Job got caught in the crossfires, but he held his integrity. He did not move over to Satan and say, I hate you, God, for what you've done. And Satan, so verse 4, and Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath he will give for his life. But so he's telling God, put forth thine hand now and touch his bone and flesh, and he will curse you to his face. Now remember, this is Satan's court case. They're still talking about Job. They haven't talked about Satan, what he did or didn't do, or God or what he didn't do. It's about what is Job going to do? Who is he going to follow? So you got to ask, why? Why? What does it matter what a man says about this ancient case of Lucifer trying to be God? It's interesting. So Satan went forth from so the Lord said, Satan, behold, he's in thy hand, but save his life. So you can touch his body, but you cannot kill him. So there was orders, and then there's, this is like a change order in the court system, and it has limitations on it. You can do this, but you can't do that. There's like, so everything is by agreement, and everything is God has limits on it. He has the final say. So Satan went forth to the presence of God and smote Job with sore boils from the soles of his feet to his crown. And he took something like a piece of clay and was scraping himself. And then his wife came and said, are you still holding your integrity after all this? Curse God and die. So there's his wife telling him to curse God. But he said to her, you speak as like one of the foolish women speak. What, shall we receive the good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. So I wanted to give you that so that you understand there's a court case, and it seems like a man is what a man will say or do is what sways this case. So in the beginning, after I read Job, I went back and I read the beginning again, and so a couple other new things dawned on me. Now that I know this is a prison and there's a court case that's involving men, now I'm reading this in a new way. So in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form. So the word was can be translated as became. So the earth was something, and then it became without form and void. Now, I've known that for a long time, but it's sort of like, well, who cares? But if you think about earth, and then there was this coup in heaven, and they were cast down into earth, the earth might have changed. Now, there could have been a whole bunch of things going on that we're not told about that aren't in the Bible, and the archaeological findings kind of point that out. So this may be a cyclical thing that we're in, but we're dealing with where we are in time space right now, like everybody here. And so this book is showing us what happened from the beginning of verse 1, on the recreation. This could be. Regardless of that, this is what happens during this creation story. So God said, let there be light, and there was light, in verse 3. And God saw the light, and it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. Not talking to anybody, just doing it. So he goes through 5 days of this, making the waters and the land and the vegetation and the birds and the fish and the thing, and he's just, God says it, makes a sound, for those that understand that, and it's done. Day 6, God said, let us. Whoa. Who's us? Now, I was told it's the Trinity and he's talking to himself. Believed that for a long time. But now, in light of this is a prison, hang on a second here. He might be talking to Satan. It doesn't say that, but that's a possibility here. Because the words don't say it's the Trinity talking to himself, and he didn't talk to himself on day 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. All of a sudden, he's talking to himself on day 6. So what's it showing you? What's the possibility? That it's another consciousness, not God. He says, let us make man in our image. Now remember, there's this coup, this court case going on. There's this coup, and he's locked up in here. In other words, Satan's still holding his ground. I still want the throne. Are you God? Yep. Are you fair? Yep. I want the throne. Think about it. If you understood God's traits, you could manipulate things if you had the litigation skills in order to make God entertain your crazy ideas. Because he is just. He is fair. All these things. So he says, let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So when you see the colon after likeness, in English grammar, that means what's said afterwards is giving more clarification to what's said before. And even in the original language, it's like that. The word image and likeness in the original language, one is more like form, like we have certain form and dogs have a certain form, and you can make a statue that looks like a man or a woman. So one word is like that. The other is about agency or acting in my stead. On my behalf. I'm obligated to whatever he does or signs, or this is all commercial. Looks to me like man was put here to settle this claim. And we're going to give them, like I have, dominion. So they're going to have aspects of God. They're going to have agency of God. They're going to have dominion over all of the elements of the earth, which is, there is nothing else but water, land, and air, or in different aspects. When you look at water, land, and air, it's also liquid, solid, gas, over elements. It's also common law, admiralty law, spiritual law. So these things have deeper meanings, and they're fractal. But we have dominion like God, in the likeness of God. That doesn't mean we are God, but we have agency to act on his behalf in here, to settle a claim, to make it fair for Lucifer. And this fits this description here. So it doesn't say who's talking to who. It says God is talking, but it doesn't say who he's talking to. But it looks like this is an offer. How about we make man in our image and give them dominion over everything, And then you see if you can overcome me in that state, is what's happening here. So God created man in his own image. So there was an agreement because this is why it repeats, verse 27, so God created man in his own image, one, singular, not two, not our. In the image of God created he him, male and female, he created he them. And God blessed them and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. In other words, there was something that happened. And subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. Remember now, Lucifer is moving upon the earth, and his fallen angels. And there may have been other beings here who probably weren't happy about this situation. So, it looks to me that what Job is saying is man is the adjudicator or the subject matter of the court case, and here's where they agreed to do that, right at the beginning when Adam was created. So what happens? Well, a couple things. There was only one rule: don't eat a certain fruit of a certain tree, and they did. So then a bunch of things changed. So in Genesis 6, which is not far from Genesis 1, it came to pass when man began to multiply on the face of the earth, that daughters were born unto them. And the sons of God, remember those are those beings that were appearing before God, these sons of God, saw that the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit will not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. And there were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. There was a genetic thing going on here, interbreeding. And what I'm trying to tell you is that genetic line has carried on.
So you're not talking about
Nephilim, yeah. Some of these, not necessarily everybody on this picture, but what I'm giving you is the controlling group descend from this. So we'll go back to... oh yeah, here we are right here. So what happened was there was an interbreeding, and then everything went into chaos. Total corruption. There was a lot of sacrifices, blood, eating each other, eating men. And if you know a little bit about what's going on in the world today, it's very similar. Stuff being pulled out of, yeah. And Yeshua said, as it was in the days of Noah, so will it be at the end. This is the days of Noah. We are in the end. So this is all repeating. So he gave us a hint. Look back to here to find out what to do. So God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that, verse 5, and that every imagination, so, I mean, these are deep things. I could talk about that for manifestation, etc., what we think, and, you know, all that. So that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. There was nobody following God. It was total satanic mayhem in here. And that's what they want. They want to move to that. They're moving towards that. You can feel it. All this gender stuff and all the just total, absolute, God-hating nonsense. God made you a girl, you should be a boy. It's to that level. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on earth. He regretted doing this deal. and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and creeping thing and fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. Remember on day 1, 2, 3, 4, God saw that it was good. God saw that it was good. God saw that it was good. All of a sudden, God's not seeing that it's good. So this whole idea of sin entered into the world, or duality, and all these things changed in there. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. So this is the days of Noah, is what the point of that is. So another thing about these people, they're Satanists. So that's who they're following. And Satan is here to get us to follow him and not God. And that's how they're going to settle who is God, in reality. Now, it's kind of an insane thing, but God has gone along with this. And God keeps his covenants, he keeps his contracts, he keeps his agreements. Satan doesn't. But God always holds his position. And you got to understand that as well. So when you see these people doing oaths, and they got their fingers crossed behind their back, yeah, I'm going to follow the Bible, and I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. No, God holds to his side of the deal. They know that, so all they got to do is go, yeah, I'm going to be the defender of the faith. King Charles, by the way. And yet he says before he does it, I don't really want to. And then same thing with the coronation oath. I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to do it because I have to. So there's a whole bunch of things going on here, contractual agreements, and God and the other angels are held back because of these agreements. And yet these beings inside here are lying, cheating, stealing, and killing the whole time. So another thing about these people is that they have a lot of money. All of them. Why is that? Why did Obama go in as a couple million and come out like a multi-billionaire in was he there 8 years or 4 years? I can't remember. Who does that? So weren't you acting as the president? So how did you what were you doing to make that kind of money? You couldn't have been doing your job. And even if whatever the job you did to get that kind of money, what was that? They all have money. If you want to make it in the music business, you want to make it as an actor, you do these things, and all of a sudden you're a multi-millionaire in the hundreds of million range, at least. That seems to be another trait. Why is that? So there they are doing their little one-eyed thing. And there's the American dollar. Oh, there's that one eye thing again. Well, I wonder if that has anything to do with it, anything. Whose eye is that? So I'm going to talk about money here really quickly. I know some of you have seen some of this before, but we got to kind of understand what money is. And this is the way they can get that kind of money to people almost instantaneously, because it's all an illusion. So this is the Bills of Exchange Act. A bill of exchange is an unconditional order in writing addressed by one person to another, signed by the person giving it, requiring the person to whom it is addressed to pay on demand or at a fixed determinable future time a sum certain of money to the order of a specified person or to bearer. There's a lot of words there. It's a run-on sentence, so it makes you just go, I don't want to read that again, because it's designed to do that. Whenever you see something like that, dig in. Resist that, too many words. Because they're hiding it. They know it's designed to make you do that. So all it's saying is, this is a piece of paper that has writing on it. It's ordering one person to pay another person an exact amount on an exact date. That's it. So these bills of exchange, these bills of exchange acts are in numerous countries, in particular the Commonwealth countries or the British Empire. The British Empire is not gone. It's just kind of pretending it's something else, but it's still alive and well and operating and making a ton of money. So here's Uniform Commercial Code for those that are American. This is a very good thing because it talks about bills of exchange and it talks about law merchant. So in this is describing what the purposes of the actual Uniform Commercial Code. So the Uniform Commercial Code is really obfuscating things. They used to have a thing similar to the Bills of Exchange Act, which kind of is more revealing. This is meant to get you into that, oh, there's too many words, and oh, I gotta click back, and I gotta, you know. It's really convoluted, but this, if you just read this as far as Americans go, this will help you to understand what's going on. So the Uniform Commercial Code, starting at A here, must, strong word in law, be liberally, meaning kind of, you know, like very openly construed, jamming it in there. Like you can change whatever to make it fit. You must do that. And applied to promote its underlying purposes and policies, which are to, 1, simplify, which this code does not do that. Clarify, only if you can really dig in. It is clear once you know how to, you know, don't get intimidated by it. And modernize the law governing commercial transactions. And so it must be liberally construed to, 2, permit the continued expansion of commercial practices through custom. Oops. Custom. What custom? Customs are more like what the indigenous do. It's like the thing that they've always done and nobody sort of really knows why, but you know, we kind of just do this. The Uniform Commercial Code must be construed to some customs. I'd like to know what those customs are. Usage and agreement of the parties, and agreement of the parties is not contracts. They can be enforced like contracts, but you can get into all kinds of agreements and be forced to perform like a contract. And agreements are liberal. So agreement of the parties, and if you were on this site, you could actually look up agreement and it would give you more explanation as opposed to contracts. And to 3, make uniform the law among the various jurisdictions. This does not say several states or various states. So it's not talking about state jurisdictions. It's talking about worldwide jurisdictions. Because this merchant thing is worldwide. That's how they're controlling everything. That's how smart meters are the same everywhere. That's why the spraying in the air is the same everywhere. That's why 5G goes up everywhere. That's why the same vaccines happen to be everywhere. So B, unless displaced by the particular provisions of the Uniform Commercial Code, so unless it specifically says so anywhere in this code, the principles of law and equity, including the law merchant and the law relative to capacity to contract, principal and agent. Oops. Remember that agency thing? Where a man was made as an agent of the two parties that were, estoppel, fraud, misrepresentation, duress, coercion. Was anybody coerced in the last few years? Mistake, bankruptcy, bankruptcies are way up, and other validating or invalidating cause supplemented its provisions. The main thing is that law merchant is mentioned and nobody knows what that is. including lawyers. And we get letters from lawyers all the time. Law merchant's a myth, and you blah, 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 blah. You got to follow the law, and you got to use a court. And I go, well, why is it mentioned in a federal act if it doesn't exist? Yeah, I know they didn't teach you at law school. Sucks to be you, but guess what? Here's what you guys say to us all the time. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Get up to speed. Because it exists. Whether you believe it or not. Here's the Bills of Exchange Act in Canada. The rules of the common law of England, including, the law merchant. Save as insofar as they are inconsistent with the express provisions of this act, apply to bills, notes, and checks. Checks we've heard of. Notes, what are bills and notes? Those are bills of exchange. Notes are promissory notes. And this says the same thing. Unless this act specifically says it's overriding the law merchant is running. This is how they get away with this. If you don't know that, you don't even know it exists, and the lawyers don't even know it exists, and half the judges don't know it exists. But guess who does know it exists? Yeah, I know it. Exactly. These guys. They're taught this stuff. So here we have Bills of Exchange Act, Australia. Anybody heard of Australia? Yeah. Application of the rules of bankruptcy and common law. The rules of the common law, including the law merchant, save in so far as they are inconsistent with the express provisions of this act, shall continue to apply to bills of exchange, checks, and promissory notes. Same wording. Little bit different, but they had to add the word continue, and then they actually say bills of exchange and promissory notes. And you'll find this little statement almost word for word in like 100 bills of exchange acts around the world. How did they all come up with the same wording? Here's something interesting. This is the Financial Administration Act in Canada. This is the interpretation. This is right at the beginning. Definitions. So Section 2. Section 1 basically says you can call this act the Financial Administration Act. Section 2 is definitions. You go all the way A, B, C, D, get down to M, and it's money. Definition of money includes negotiable instruments. Negotiable instruments is the next definition. It includes any check, draft, traveler's check, bill of exchange. But we still don't know what that is. Postal note, money order, postal remittance, and any other similar instrument. Now, similar leaves it pretty wide open. So I want you to really understand this. So a bill of exchange is a negotiable instrument. And a negotiable instrument is money. A bill of exchange is money. And all you are going to nod at that. And then when I talk about the bills that we have, you're going to go, how do you get the money? And I will repeat, the bill is the money. You go, I know that, but how do you get the money? And I'm like, and this is the training that's gone on. Our brains literally cannot compute that because we've been trained a certain way. So that's why I gotta repeat stuff, and I'm very patient with it because I know I had to go through this too, because it's like, no, the bill is how you get the money. You bill somebody and then you get the money. No. Now think about if you knew this, that the bill is the money, all I gotta do is bill you, and I know it's money, and a bunch of my friends know it's money, and we all own banks. How rich are we gonna get? Now do you see how Obama can be go from a millionaire to a multi-billionaire in like a few years while he's the president? Because this is all just pieces of paper. So I'm just going to run through a few bills of exchange. This is what they look like, and most of us would say that's a check, but it's not. It's not drawn on a bank. This is before banks existed, and they still do bills of exchange even though there are banks. So this is what they kind of look like. It's an order. Somebody has to pay somebody a certain amount of money, and then all these signatures and everything on. That's them negotiating it, and when I mean negotiate, we negotiate all the time. We just don't know that we're doing it, and we don't sign it. I'm not going to give you this one, but I'll give you that one.
Thanks. That's very kind of you.
Yep. See, that's how these traveled. In other words, I paid her for something. I paid her to sit in that chair. And yet it was a debt note from somebody else. It had nothing to do with her. This is how they did it. If you were writing these pieces of paper saying X owes somebody, it became that amount on the paper itself, and they just passed it to somebody else. Go and collect it from that guy. And everybody was like, yeah, I'm going to go and collect it from that guy. And then I would hand it to somebody else. We are doing it all the time. We're completely trained, but we don't understand what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. We think that's the money. I'm telling you, that is not the money. That is a promissory note. That is a promise to pay money, and yet there is no place to actually get it, which we'll get into here. So this is where this all stems from. This is all old Babylonian. This is the merchant system. And once you can wrap your head around it, here's where things get really funny. So this is a bill of exchange that was drawn in Canada, in Eastern Canada, in the 1816. And it's from I can see it better up here. This is from a family. I looked this family up. So this is the Kidstons. And so you see the name Kidston on here a couple times. So the William Kidston is a merchant in Glasgow, Scotland. They originated from Scotland. Part of their family moved to Eastern Canada, and they set up shop there. And they were dealing with stuff out of South America. So one of the grandsons, I think James was a grandson of William, is writing a piece of paper that is drawn on a guy on his grandfather in Scotland. I owe you X amount of dollars, go collect it from my grandfather in Scotland. And they were passing this stuff around. And everybody's going, yep, he's good for it. I'll just keep this going. Can you see how things could be manipulated and how things could be taken advantage of? Now, there was honor, amongst these thieves that they would pay it. But if this ended up in South America, are you really going to go to Scotland to get what is this thing worth? 40 pound and 10 shillings of silver. No, you're not. You're just going to pass it around as 40 pounds and as if it had the value of that actual silver. And everybody's honorable because these merchants are, they're merchants. Of course, they've got the silver and they will pay it on demand. But if they don't demand, well, then they don't pay it. It's that simple. So if it comes, you better pay. But if it doesn't come, well, I just got a bunch of stuff for a piece of paper. Here's how far it gets. So remember, a bill of exchange is money. This is Canada, where a simple signature on a blank piece of paper is delivered by the signer in order that may be converted into a bill of exchange, in order that it can be converted into money, I'm going to have to say it one more time. Delivered by the signer in order that it may be converted into money, it operates in the absence of evidence to the contrary as an authority to fill it up as a complete bill for any amount, using the signature for that of one of the drawer or acceptor, an endorser, and I don't want to get too far into that, but you can learn that. And in like manner, when a bill is wanting in any material particular, if it's missing one of those things, like party A has to pay party B an exact amount on a certain date, if it's missing any of those things, the person who has the piece of paper with the signature on it has, in the absence of evidence to the contrary, so unless something was written on that piece of paper saying you can't do it, or non-negotiable is a really good one, the person who has possession of it has the authority to fill up the omission any way he thinks fit. So if your signature is on a piece of paper and it's missing anything to make it a bill, they could add it to it. Wow. So if a whole bunch of people didn't know that and they were signing all kinds of things, and I did know that, I'm getting rich.
So it's
That-
like a blank check.
Absolutely. Just a signature on a blank piece of paper. That's how far this can go. So what happens is when you fill out an application for a credit card, it's got an amount on there, it's got a date on there, it's got your signature on there. Ooh. I'm pretty sure I can turn that into a bill of exchange. So I'm going to send a whole bunch of applications for credit cards. People are going to sign them. We'll maybe give them a card, maybe not, but yeah, it's that bad. Here's the Hudson Bay Company. Now, this is the company that was the government of Canada for over 200 years, and actually still is, in my opinion. This is a promissory note. So this promises to the bearer, so it's not even made out to anybody. This is a bearer note similar to the $5 bill I gave her. And it's for 5 shillings, and you can collect it at the York factory in Rupert's Land. And you will get a bill of exchange once you go to the York factory that is payable 60 days after sight, which you have to go and present it at the Hudson Bay House in London, England. So this is something that it is payable, but I want you to understand what this means. I don't know if you know Canadian geography, but you can kind of see where Montreal is and the Great Lakes down at the bottom there. And then underneath that, most of that green, pink stuff is the United States. So the United States kind of goes right through the Great Lakes. They split that. It drops down in there. That chunk of land was Rupert's Land. And the York factory is where northern Manitoba is now. It's winter like most of the year there. And even in the summer, it's very rugged ground. And this is before cars or planes or anything. You were walking or you were canoeing to get to that factory. Most of the people lived down near the border, still do. Nobody lives up there even today. It's like the middle of nowhere. So you'd have to take, if you want to actually get the silver for that 5 shillings, you'd have to go there. They would, yep, we'll redeem this. Here's your bill of exchange. We'll write another piece of paper. Can you go take that to the head office in London? And when you get there, they have 2 months to actually come up with the silver. So you might have to put yourself up. So it's not impossible to collect this, but they made it very impractical on purpose because there was no reason for this. They could have done it way different. Even the York factory had cannons. They could have had silver there. So they could have protected it. They were protecting stuff anyway. Most of the forts had cannons. This is a corporation like Montreal, like Walmart or Woolworths. I noticed there's Woolworths around here. But they had cannons. And you were forced to shop with them. And they made laws, etc. So I don't want to get into all that. That's all mostly Canadian stuff. But anyway, the point is, this note here was difficult to actually claim. So nobody did it. They just kept passing them around, pass it around, pass it around, pass it around. Now they're giving actual beaver pelts for these, and then the Hudson Bay Company's taking them to Europe, turning them into jackets and hats and things, and charging silver for it. But they're paying with pieces of paper with writing on them. How rich do you think you can get if you understood this? This is still happening, folks. So a promissory note is an unconditional promise in writing made by one person to another, signed by the maker, engaged to pay on demand or a fixed determinable future time, a sum certain in money. So it's very similar. This is the similar thing to a bill of exchange, a promissory note. The main difference is one is an order for party A to pay party B. This is, I promise to pay party B. Okay. This is the Uniform Commercial Code explaining the same thing, negotiable instruments. And these are a bunch of promissory notes. Here's a Ben Franklin bill of exchange. This is common. We weren't taught any of this, but certain families are taught this. Here's a $5 treasury note. These are all still payable. As you can see, you can collect your $50 in coin. So this is a silver promissory note from the United States. This is the Federal Reserve came in 1913. So now we've got the Hudson Bay Company making things difficult to collect. So the Federal Reserve comes in. This is still a collectible note, as you can see right in here. Oh, you're not seeing my thing. Just up there, redeemable in gold on demand at the United States Treasury. So in 1913, even though this is a Federal Reserve note, not a United States of America note, it was still redeemable in gold. And in 1933, they removed the gold. Now remember, they made it difficult to get it, the Hudson Bay Company. Now you can't get it. But we're still going to put these pieces of paper out. You guys all okay with this? Pass them around. And now you have legal tender up there. This note is legal tender for all debts, public, and so you can pay debts with this, but you can't go and get the actual gold or silver anymore. That's what these are. They have no value whatsoever. So we're going to get into, this is Revelation 18, which describes Babylon. This is what this whole thing is about. So you see that there's the satanic idea, and then there's the money. And I'm telling you, money is how they're running everything. Every bad thing that's happening in earth, money is involved. So this describes the situation we're in right now. After these things, I saw an angel come down from heaven, having great power. And verse 2, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, is become the habitation of devils, the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth, the governments of the earth, have committed fornication with her, and the merchants bankers of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Starting to make the connection here. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins and receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. In other words, God is going to do something. But remember, God can only act with his agent that he put in here a long time ago. We all descend from that agent. Reward her. That's why he's saying, my people, get away from her. And then continues. That doesn't mean run to the hills or, prep and all that. I'm not saying not to prep, but it's not that. Because it says in verse 6 to interact with her. Reward her as she was rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works in the cup she hath filled to her double. I just showed you how they've been bilking us. So we're supposed to do it back to them, according to the Bible that the king swore on. And the Lord Mayor of London was in the room and signed it. We have full permission. Actually, we have instruction to do this. And remember, there's this court case going on. The judge needs this. Here's the book of Enoch, which goes back to Genesis 6. So there was 4 angels, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel. You've heard a couple of them, but probably the others you haven't. They saw the lawless, this is back at the Noah's time, they saw what was going on, all the eating and the killing and the debauchery. And they said to one another, the earth is now crying up to us, to the gates of heaven. And now to you, the holy ones, the souls of men make their suit, put forth their claim, put forth their voice in a lawsuit type thing. Bring our cause. Remember, the court was moved against him without cause. These are all court type things. So bring our cause before the Most High. And they said, Lord of the angels, Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings. So you get the idea of who they're talking to. You have made all, verse 5, you have made all things, and power you know everything. 6, you see what they have done, and they have revealed secrets to men. And then verse 7, and Semjaza, who you gave as a leader, they have gone into the daughters of men. They have actually bred in. And we've got this total chaos happening. And you know all this. And the women have borne giants, and the whole earth has been filled with blood and unrighteousness. And behold, the souls of those who have died are crying and making their suit to the gates of heaven, and their lamentations have ascended and cannot cease because of the lawless deeds that are wrought upon the earth. Does that sound like today? And you know all these things before they come to pass. And you see all these things, and you suffer them. And you do not say to us what we are to do in regarding to these things. You're not doing anything. Now, they're not accusing God. This is for us to glean. God can't move for some reason. So this is what it's pointing out. So verse 10, this is Enoch 1. So then they said that actually I'm missing a bit here. It's probably got cut off. Anyway, what they say right after this is that the earth has been crying out, and now men have cried out and brought forth their suit. Instantly, God goes, tell Noah to get in the boat. arrest that one, do this, do that. Like orders were coming out like instantaneously because men had finally said something. It was our activity that allowed their activity. Now remember, there's twice as many outside of Earth than the ones that are in. They can come in and out as well. But what I'm saying is the ones that are remanded here, there's twice as many. But they're not coming in because we're not active. We're not following Revelation 18:6. Take the cup. You've got to be active. It's saying you've got to do something. I can't move without your input into this case. I have to hold my integrity. I'm not going to cheat. I said I would allow men to be my agent, like in Genesis 1, when we first made man. He's held his part, but we got to do our part. That's what this is about, how to get out of this. So instantly he says, go tell Noah, hide thyself. In other words, get in the boat. Noah had been building this boat the whole time. The whole earth is going to be destroyed, and then there was a flood. So I got to move a little quick here. So this is Yeshua speaking. But as the days of Noah were, so also shall be the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage. That's that interbreeding. That's what he's talking about. Until the day that Noah entered into the ark and knew not the flood came, and they took them all away. And so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. There's another judgment coming, but we've got to be engaged. We have to take part in this. And this is talking about Lucifer again. You were in Eden. This, like I said, sounds to me like God was talking to Lucifer in the Garden of Eden. Every precious stone was thy covering. The sardius, topaz, diamond, beryl, like it was very beautiful. He was the light bearer. The workmanship of thy tabrets and thy pipes, he was the musical. Ever wonder why the music industry is the way it is? And for 14, and thou art anointed cherub that covereth, and I've set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of God. And I don't want to get into that, but that's the sides of the north, could be the North Pole and the thing there, but a whole other story. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. You were perfect in your ways from the day that you were created, until iniquity was found in thee. This is where he went, I think I want to be God. Me, I will. And by the multitude of thy merchandise, merchants, they have filled the midst of thee with violence, and thou hast sinned, and therefore I will cast thee as profane out of the mountain of God, and I will destroy thee, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. You were very beautiful and light, full of light and all of that stuff. And you were corrupted by thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground. I will lay thee before kings that they may behold thee. You have defiled thy sanctuaries by the multitude of thy iniquities, by the iniquity of thy traffic, commerce. Therefore I will bring forth the fire from the midst of thee, and I will devour thee. And I will bring, this will happen in front of everybody. There's the light bearer. That is as above, so below. And you'll see this. The one on the right is definitely male, and this is male. And then they start to become female. Ever notice that happening in our society? Here's the Statue of Liberty. Came about in the 1800s. This is a painting of Lucifer from on the left. Light, the light bearer. And this is, for those that are studying Tartaria, this is all around that time, 1800s. Looks like something switched. There was something that happened, and they're trying to cover it up. The Statue of Liberty was put outside of New York at that time. Here is that's yours. You can't spend it anyway. Here's the chain is taken off of his foot. This is the Statue of Liberty. It's not a woman. So what we're doing, this taking of the cup, is like a jujitsu move. So if they weren't giving us the cup, we wouldn't be able to fill it double. So this is about taking their energy, what they're doing to us, doubling it and giving it back. And again, a bill of exchange is money. I can't say that enough until it sinks in. On the right is for those that are part of Inpower, they've seen this before. That is a bill of exchange that we have sent. That's actually mine. Because those are my seals. And this is to Trudeau, I believe. So, liable party, Justin Trudeau. Now, he quit. He stepped down. They shut down the whole parliament. Then they had to have a fake election, and they brought Carney in, who is definitely a globalist. So, this is what we're creating. So, you can see the amount on the side. Maybe you can't. It's 4,900,000. Maybe I can see it here. Nope. It's about $5 million. Now, this was my first bill to him, so there was a little bit of extra days, but generally speaking, it's in the millions that we're billing to these people. We're doubling this cup up. We're doing this faster than they did over thousands of years. The total amount of bills of exchange that we have right now is 36 billion USD.
But can you do anything with that?
It's money. Yeah, you're getting it. Yeah, well, here the story's not over yet. So normally when you get these bills of exchange, because it's you have to be an initiate in order to have these things go through the system and you get the actual, these types of things. So you're correct. But what has happened over the last 20 years or so is that they have allowed cryptos into our psyche. So we're going to be taking this 36 billion, turning it into crypto and giving it back to the people who created the bills. So this is Babylon. As the toes and feet, this was I gotta do a little, have I got time? No. This is the statue of Babylon from Daniel 2. And it described how Babylon is going to fall. So it coincides with Revelation 18. A stone made without hands comes and chips. You'll see it at the bottom there. For as much as thou saw the stone that was cut out of the mountain without hands, that had broken into pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof is sure. So the stone made without hands, an undressed stone, comes and chips at the bottom of this statue. The statue is showing the Babylonian Empire in 4 stages. So there has been 4 empires that would have started with ancient Babylon and gone to today. And so the stone chips it and knocks the whole thing out. So it's going, and that's what Revelation 18 is describing. So the cup and the stone are kind of like the same thing, or allegories of something. So here it is here that it was the head of gold, which was Nebuchadnezzar at that time when Daniel was here. Then there's the Medo-Persia, Greece, and then the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire is not really gone. It's just kind of morphed. And so we are here at the feet. The feet are clay mixed with iron, and then the rock chips the clay off the iron. So, and the clay is described as men. We are from the dirt. We are from earth, like we literally were made like that. So here is the crypto that I was talking about, like how we're going to spend this. So we're making a crypto, we're calling it Evan. And Evan is actually the pronunciation of a Hebrew word, or an Aramaic word even, Eben. It's spelled E-B-E-N, but we wanted people to say it properly, so that it is causing what needs to happen in the actual ether, because we are in the image of God. So we spelled it this way so that people were saying it right. But Evan means, it's the word for the stone that chips at the bottom of the feet. It's the word for the chief cornerstone, which is Jesus Christ. It's the word for the stones that Jacob built when he built the altar. It's that word. It appears in the Bible only a few times, and that's the word. That's what we're calling this crypto, Evan. And there's our dove. We're going to be having things dealing with that. And that's it.